So, I'm really happy to be back here with you. I'm really happy to see some familiar faces and some new faces and all of that. I'm grateful that you're here, but I'll be honest, if you weren't here, I'd still be talking about this stuff anyway. This just gives me an excuse. Because the truth about me that I want to share with you today is that I love talking about this stuff. I can't help myself. I can't shut up about it. That's one of the ways you know you're on the right path. If you can't shut up about the thing, you know that you're probably doing what you're supposed to be doing and all that. So I'm grateful, but I can't help it. And it has been that way for me my whole life. I've been a minister for 30 years, but before that, and before that, and before that, the defining characteristic of me is that I can't shut up about this God stuff, this spirituality stuff. I can't help it. And all throughout the journey of my life, I have wanted to regard other people as my teachers. And so I find myself asking people, or I should say I found myself, but I'll get to that in a minute. I found myself asking people very specific questions about what it is that they believed in. I would say, what's your rule book? You know, what is your set of doctrine or dogma? What's your thing? What's the thing that you sign and you pledge to? What's the thing that you believe? What is your recipe? What's your rule book? And I would ask those kind of questions to different people, and I would ask those kind of questions to different people, and I would ask those kinds of questions to different people. But what I found is I never got any answers that spoke to my heart. You know why? It's a dumb question. Because here's the thing that I learned the hard way, and that is you can't get to a heart answer with a head question. It doesn't work that way. Wrong tool for the wrong job, you know what I mean? And I did that for a long time. But the thing is, the rules aren't especially important. What the average Catholic person does all week long is very different than what the Pope does all week long. Same rules, and I'm not judging those rules. But it's just a different life. And you could say that about any religious tradition, east, west, all over the place. The rules aren't the thing that defines the experience. There's something else going on. And so I was asking for something to fill my heart, but I was asking with my head. And that just doesn't make any sense. And in fact, I would argue that maybe that's the problem. Whatever it is that you're working on, take a minute and ask yourself, am I using the right tool for this? Am I coming at this from a feeling place? Because what I want is to feel something. Isn't that what everybody wants? So the rules really aren't important. Let me put that a different way. There is a difference between a recipe and a donut. And I don't know about you, but what I want is a donut. I don't care about the recipe. You know what I mean? This is really important. And in fact, that applies to everything. When you listen to great music, you're a weird person if you're like, okay, now what note are you going to play now? Now what are the notes? And where did you go to school? And how many keys does your piano have? They all have 88. What's your deal? You're ruining it. That's not the point of that. You don't ask that of a great athlete even. Well, what foot are you going to use now? And in fact, if that athlete were to start thinking in terms of, well, where am I going to stand now and how am I going to move my body, they're going to screw it up. As it turns out, everything is like that. Art is like that. Life is like that. We're like that. And so what I learned the hard way over years of asking a dumb question is that I needed a different question. And one of the things I came here today to tell you is that I found one that worked for me, that got me to where I wanted to go, and it was a much simpler process. The question that I started asking people on my travels, on my journey, is this. This is the one that worked for me. See if it works for you. When you pray, who are you talking to? That was the question. When you pray, who are you talking to? Think about how much is in there, right? Okay, first of all, it establishes your answer to that question, talks about your position in the universe, your relationship to the bigness. Now, I use a word like God to talk about that because that's my background. But if somebody says something different, like life or love or the Great Spirit or the universe or Joe Pesci, doesn't matter to me. It says something. Your answer to that question says something about the whole thing, the bigness, and your position as an expression of that bigness, if you want. But the thing that it also did for me is it made me realize how important prayer was in the process of spirituality. I mean, I knew about it. I grew up in church, like has been said. I'm a child and a grandchild of ministers. That sounded a little bit like a support group. My name is Dieter Randolph. Hi, Dieter. I knew that prayer was a thing, but I didn't know it was the thing. I thought it was kind of a byproduct. Like, well, you're supposed to do that kind of stuff, and everybody does it, and it's just the thing, and fine, whatever. But as I get older in this, I have begun to realize that prayer is the way we express this thing, more than anything else. Prayer is the way that it's where the rubber meets the road. It's the way that we feel it. It's the way that we experience it. It's the thing. It's the way that we do something. And doing something is what this is all about. I don't know if you know this phrase, but it's a phrase that I really love. The phrase is, all hat, no cattle. You ever heard that before? All hat, no cattle. It's a cowboy term. If you're all hat, no cattle, it means you have the outfit, but you don't know how to ride a horse, for example. All hat, no cattle. You know what I mean? When I was young, I took about 3 guitar lessons, because 3 is all you need. And I could bust out a pretty good blues scale. I still can. I can do Iron Man, very important. I can even do the beginning of Sweet Child of Mine, really, really important. But you see, that was all I needed to start a conversation with a girl. Yeah, that's right, I play guitar. Now, let's talk about us. That was it. All hat, no cattle. All recipe, no donut. And that was me. But I think it's a lot of people. You can call yourself a Christian, for example, but unless you're into the whole radical mercy thing and loving everybody and seeing everybody as equal and taking care of everybody, a lot of hat, It's one of those things. And it applies to everything. Everything. You can talk about love all you want. You can sing songs about it. You can yearn for love. But until love becomes a verb for you, until you love somebody, you will be alone. Until you love something, you won't experience love. All hat, no cattle. I'm in a position where people come to me and ask me for advice all the time. And I love that. I go on the road, I speak all over the place. People know me from the books that I've written and stuff like that. And one of the things that people know me the most from is I make these little movies on Instagram. They go off on the internet where I just give some guidance. And it's basically like, come here, it's going to be okay. At the end of all my videos, I say, you got this, kiddo. And as a result of that, people ask me for advice. But it turns out one of the things that people ask me most is, how can I get some stuff? I'm going to say it differently. But it's like, how can I get that thing? I want the new car, or I want the job. I want this person to pay attention to me. How can I get my thing? How can I receive? And I understand that. And look, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. It's okay to want to have somebody in your life. It's okay to want a new car. It's okay to want all of these things. But God is not Oprah. You get a miracle. It doesn't work that way. And the thing that I find myself telling people the most is that receiving is a byproduct. And you're trying to get down with cause. And you can't do both at the same time. What I tell people is that you have to go do a thing. Like I said a minute ago, if you want love, go be loving and watch what happens. You want money? Figure out how to tithe. Figure out how to be a giver and watch what happens. You want healing? Find out how to embody healing in your life. Live it, give something, and something will happen. The spiritual thing, I'm trying to be as generic as I can, the spiritual thing has nothing to do with mastery. It has everything to do with surrender. Go do something. Give yourself to something. Your art, your love, your life, your study, your thing. Find it. Give yourself to it. And watch what happens when you surrender to it. And that leads me to one of the basic truths of the universe. Did you know you're going to get one of those today? One of the basic truths of the universe. This is part of how life with a capital L works. And if you're the kind of person that writes stuff down, this is one of the things I'd like you to write down, man. Because this is big. And I learned it the hard way, and I don't want you to. Don't try this at home. You ready? Everything is use it or lose it. Everything is use it or lose it. Everything. It applies to your physical body. You want to atrophy? It applies to the way that you love. It applies to money. If you want to run out of money, hold on real tight. It applies to everything. Everything is use it or lose it. It applies to your art. Everything. So go do a thing. That's part of the deal. Or, as it says in the Bible, you've been faithful with a little, I'll put you in charge of a lot. If you use what you have with heart, you get put in charge of more. And you know that because you've done it in your life, even if you didn't know that's what you were doing. This is how life works. And I know it's one of those things like, oh, okay, he's quoting the Bible, fine. Here he comes. You know, I get it. That's my thing. That's where I come from. That's the book of my tradition. So that's where I'm coming from. But when I talk about any wisdom literature, the Bible or any other piece of wisdom literature, there's always a certain number of people that go, yeah, I can't. And I get it. People have been hit with the same books I want to read to you. I understand that. And I'm not here for that. But I understand when people say, yeah, wisdom literature feels like a lot of hat. You know what I mean? I don't get it. It's not my thing. And I understand that too. But what I will tell you is, the stories that we read will just be stories until we find a way to participate in them. The mythology that we share will just be mythology until we find a way to live it. There has to be something that we do to interact with our traditions, whether they're ones we grew up with or ones we're just figuring out or both. In other words, if it's going to be something that changes your life, you've got to live that life. You've got to live it. And so once again, my friends, I have found that the way to live out your spirituality has to do with this process called prayer. And I know it's one of those words. On a Sunday morning when a white guy stands up and says, we should all pray, there are attachments. I get it. It feels a little fire and brimstone-y in here. You know, I understand that, but I'm not going there. That's not what I do. You know that by now. But I understand. So there's some stuff to talk about. But more than that, we have stuff to not talk about. Because I get it if people go, yeah, you know, I've got attachments about that word and that experience, and it feels weird to me because I grew up here, or we did this, or this happened to me. And I used to believe that that person that I talked to when I prayed was a person in the sky, a big guy with a beard. That's Santa you're thinking of? But I got this idea that there was this being who didn't like me much, and no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. I get it. But I want to unpack all that because it has nothing to do with any of that. The experience of prayer, the process and practice of prayer is way more simple than that. It's something you're already really good at. It's something that you can get better at, and it's something that will change things for you and has nothing to do with any particular recipe. Guys, this is all donuts. You see, each and every one of us knows what it feels like to be in the zone. Each and every one of us knows what it is when you lose track of time doing something. Each and every one of us knows that feeling where you forgot a thing and you're just in it. Each and every one of us knows when oh, that's beautiful. I don't know why, but that song makes me cry every time. I get to the ending of Casablanca, I can't deal with myself. You know, like you know you're in love. Everyone has some flavor of that feeling. Everyone has some flavor of that, oh, this. Don't know why. But every one of us has touched what I call the unthinkable. When you've transcended recipe and you're into experience. When you're not playing scales anymore, when it's jazz. Every one of us knows that feeling. Well, here's what I want you to know now. Get good at those moments because they're trying to tell you something. Specifically, they're trying to tell you life can be like this. But more than that, that feeling you have when you know you're in love, when you know it's art, when it's your jam and you got to dance to it, that feeling you have, that's prayer. That's prayer. It's not prayer because your clergyman told you it was prayer. It's not prayer because it's in a book. It's prayer because your heart is the thing that's leading the way for once. And I know we're not trained for it in this life. We're supposed to be sensible. Enough. You know what it feels like when everything else gets out of the way. That's prayer. Prayer is a connection with the source of meaning. That's what prayer is when you think about it, right? So, do some archaeology on your own life. When's the last time I felt connected with meaning? What was I doing? Now, go do more of that. That's all. That's the catechism for today, you know? Go do more of that. And what you're going to find, when you think about the experiences that you had when you were in the zone, when you connected with meaning, when it worked, whatever it was, when you just knew whatever it was, all of that. The byproduct, and I know this because I talk to people all over the country about this all the time. It's kind of my job. Is that whatever you were doing, doesn't matter what you were doing, but whatever you were doing worked. You ever notice that? I didn't go to school for this, but I stayed up all night because I loved it so much. I missed dinner. Look what I made. And maybe it's not everything, but I think it's art. And I haven't read all of the books, but this is love. I love this person. Or whatever it is. This is the chocolate chip cookie recipe of all time. You know, whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'm not here to judge. That's not my job. But my job is to remind you that when you are in touch with meaning, things work. Because you are in touch with the source of meaning, but you're also in touch with the source of functionality. This is why it's important, because everyone sitting in this room, everybody watching on the internet and all that is trying to get something to work in their lives. Get good at this. Because that's the thing. This is the thing. Prayer is not about influencing anything. It's more like getting good at something. Prayer is not about influencing anything. It's more like getting good at something. And I say not influencing anything as I go grab my water because this is worth getting a sip of water for. The last time you prayed, were you trying to influence somebody? Come on, God. I swear I won't do it again. Come on, God. Can you just do it my way? Come on, God. Can you just like me? I know that feeling. I felt that feeling. I was brought up to not feel that feeling, and I felt that feeling. I get it. But here's what I need you to know. The universe is really good at infinity. The universe is really good at love. The universe is really good at making beautiful things like you. In other words, God, or whatever word you use, I use the word God, God already likes you. So would you even want to change God's mind about that if you could? Prayer is not the process of changing God's mind. And this is the other thing to write down. Prayer does not change God. If you are trying to pray a prayer of changing God, you are bound to be disappointed. Doesn't work. Couldn't work. Because if your God is so small that God can be changed, what kind of miracles can you expect in the first place? Think about it. Do you want a God that goes, oh, okay. It's a tiny little God, lowercase g, God. Doesn't work that way. I also like the prayer of information. God, I don't know if you know this, I'm having a hard time. This and the other. This guy's a jerk. I don't like this thing. If your God is so small that God doesn't know that, then how many miracles can you expect? How big of an experience can you expect? God knows. God loves you already because God is love. So what if we prayed differently? What if our prayer process was more about getting in touch with that? So here's the other part of that equation. Prayer does not change God. Prayer changes me. Let that be the object of my prayers. God, may I get my junk out of the way. God, may I remember who you made me to be. God, can I just practice more of this presence? Can I get in touch with meaning? God, what do I need to do to get out of the way? If you pray that prayer, things will move around for you. But I can get even more specific about this, because I have found that there is a formula for this. It works, and it's simple. I've tried it all the time. I've worked with people all over the place, and they report the same results. I'm not here to sell it. I'm just here to tell it. I first encountered the formula, the 3 steps in this formula, in the Bible, but that doesn't matter because it appears everywhere. But here's the place I found it. You ready? If you have faith in your heart and do not doubt, you will say to the mountain, be up and cast into the sea, and it will be done for you. If you have faith in your heart and do not doubt, you will say to the mountain, be up and cast into the sea, and it will be done for you. Those steps are present there. They're present in every miracle in the Bible. They're present in every miracle that you ever heard in any wisdom literature, in any religious and spiritual tradition. And they're present every time in your life when something worked. I guarantee it. And those steps, to boil them down, are this: see, speak, surrender. See, speak, surrender. If you have faith in your heart and do not doubt, that's the see part. You will say to the mountain, be up and cast into the sea. That's the speak part. And it will be done for you. That's the surrender part. This is how life works. Most people don't know that prayer doesn't start with what you say. Or it doesn't start with what it doesn't. Because I stumble over that because it's such a hard time people have. So many times people say, what's the right book? What's the secret password to God's treehouse? I memorized these things. How come? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I want you to know that prayer doesn't start with what you say. There is no special magic Expelliarmus combination of words that gets God to arrive in your life. God's here. It ain't about that. Prayer starts with what you see. Your job is to fill your vision with what is true, with what is meaningful, with what is kind, with what is just, to fill your life with what you just know, like you know you're alive. Those moments when you feel like you're in the zone, collect them. Get good at cataloging them, and those moments will get closer and closer together for you. Prayer starts with what you see, so fill your vision. How do I know when I'm done? Good question. Thanks for asking. You'll know because you can't shut up about it. It goes from words into action. It's like that moment when you decide that you love somebody and all of a sudden every song on the radio reminds you, this is about them. Well, that's how you know you got into the action phase. When you can't shut up about it, then you not just speak, but act, live, communicate, that kind of thing. And then something really magical happens. And this is the hard part for a lot of people. It's been the hard part for me too. You get out of the way. Oh, I'm not good at surrender. I'm not. I'm better at it, I swear, and I'm getting better at it. Because over and over again, I've learned easy way and hard way. Oh, wait a minute. This is not my job to fix the universe. Ego, right? It's a beast. But you get out of the way. Because, once again, the formula is, if you have faith in your heart and do not doubt, not you can say, but you will say. You can't help it. You will say, get to the mountain, be up and cast to the sea. And, the Bible doesn't say, and then go get a shovel. It will be done for you. This is important. Getting out of the way is tricky sometimes. When my son was about 12, I got him an expensive watch, which is, unequivocally, a dumb thing to do. But I did it on purpose. I did a dumb thing on purpose because sometimes love doesn't make sense. And I saw this as an educational opportunity. I wanted him to know that sometimes you care for things, that I wanted him to feel that I saw that he was a responsible person, growing up, all of that kind of thing. But I also wanted him to know that if it broke, it could be fixed. That was the secret part I didn't tell him. Something happened. And let's not get into blame. Let's just say the watch broke. It's fine. I mean, it wasn't a Rolex. Let's be clear. So we dealt with it, and he felt bad, but I said, this is what we do. It's fixable. I'm here for you. And we went to the watch repair place, and so we spoke, we went, right? And my son Miles was going to give the guy his watch, but he just couldn't let it go. He couldn't let it go. It was almost like a tug-of-war thing. I don't know if you've seen the beginning of Young Frankenstein, but it was like that with the book. Go watch it. It's an important spiritual film. But he couldn't let the watch go. Well, guess what? The watch can't get fixed until you let go. Kind of like life. But it was the coolest thing. I couldn't believe it because I was just sort of standing back watching what would happen. And the watch repair guy said, it's not your fault. I don't know why he said that. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know my kid. But he said, it's not your fault. And Miles let go of the watch. And the guy fixed the watch. Happy ending, right? Surrender is the beginning of healing. So here's what I want you to know. You're working on something. Everybody is. Whatever happened before, it's not your fault. You did what you did. They did what they did. We all did what we all did. But here we are now. And now is the moment of decision, of new beginnings, of letting stuff go. It ain't your fault. Just, if it hurt, don't do it again. If you hurt somebody, make it better, but don't do it again. Fix the watch. It's not your fault. This is how life works. We begin to realize that prayer isn't a place we go to. Prayer isn't a bill that we pay. Prayer isn't a thing that happens at the end, like some literal and proverbial Hail Mary pass. Some people think that prayer happens at the end, but think about how weird that is. I've been practicing. My band has finally got the big show. Now let's learn our songs. We got to the playoffs. Maybe I should learn how to do a free throw. Prayer happens first if it works. Prayer is a way that you live, not something you save up. Prayer is the way that you participate in the mythology, in the stories. Prayer is how they become real and start to live in you. So whatever background you're comfortable with, find out what prayer looks like. Find out about that vocabulary. That's beautiful. But more than that, practice beauty. Fill your vision with what you know is true. Fill your vision and your hearing and your heart with what just is love. And you have some version of that, right? Get more. Get good at it. That's why we're here, man. Everything else, secondary. Fill your vision, fill your heart, fill your hearing, fill your senses with what is true and what is loving to the point where you can't shut up about it. So say something, show up, stand on the courthouse steps if you feel led to do that. Play a song, paint a painting, do a thing, love somebody, and then let it go. You will find healing, and you will find peace, and you will find freedom. Because after all, freedom is a choice. Thank you.